Previous lecture, we introduced the idea of cost, the marginal cost, marginal products, total revenue, and so on. And then we talk about the perfectly competitive market. What were some of the highlights in the perfectly competitive market? We said at profit maximization, the marginal cost should be equal to the marginal revenue. And in this market, I mean the competitive market, price is always equal to marginal revenue. And for that matter, price is equal to marginal cost in this market, which makes it an efficient market, because how much we value the good is just how much it costs to produce additional units. So remember, the competitive market, both firms and buyers, or sellers and buyers, are all price takers. They cannot influence the market. There are many buyers and many sellers. Okay, so in this lecture, we will talk about the monopoly market. Most of you know what it is. We'll formally discuss the market with a single producer or seller. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, or we can meet in class and talk about it. So a monopoly is just a firm who is a single seller of a product. Okay, key thing to note here is that the product the monopolist is selling has no close substitute. We are not saying there are no substitutes, there are just no close substitute. A monopolist is a single producer of a good that has no close substitute. Okay, ECG supplies electricity in Ghana. There are no close substitute to what they do. Of course, there are substitutes like the candle, the lantern, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, we'll be contrasting it with the perfect competition. These are both extreme types of market structures. A monopolist has market power. Okay, a monopolist has market power. In other words, he's able to influence the market price of the product he sells. Remember, a competitive firm has no market power. What does market power here means? Control of your price. A competitive firm cannot alter the price. It takes price as fixed or determined by the market, but a monopolist can change his or her own price. He can decide the price by changing outputs or restricting outputs. Okay, so what we are seeing in this lecture and what we saw previously are kind of two extremes. In perfect competition, many firms, identical products. Monopoly, just one firm. Okay. So you will see later on that we have a monopolist here, a monopolist, and a competitive market, or perfect competition. Perfect competition. These are two extremes. Okay, and then we have some non-extremes in the middle. Later on, you would see monopolistic competition right here. It's probably somewhere monopolistic, and then you have the oligopoly. Okay, so that's where we are going. We are talking about monopoly in this lecture. Together, also, we'll be talking about the oligopoly market and the monopolistic market. Very interesting. Most of us have faced monopolists in our lives, a single seller of a product like ECG. I don't know who else. Sometime in Ghana, only One Touch or Ghana Telecom was supplying communication services. They were a monopolist, but now we don't have a monopolist anymore. We have MTN and so on. So a market structure with only one producer is a monopolist. Okay, but what happens? Okay, what's the source of this monopoly power, where a firm becomes a single producer or seller of a particular commodity? Okay, you can become a single seller. You can become a single seller because there will be barriers to entry. Remember, in perfect competition, we said there was free entry and exit. In this market, there are barriers to entry. Okay. Because there are barriers, you may emerge as a single producer because others cannot come in easily. Okay, so what are the sources of this monopoly power? It could be that you control the key resource. Okay, if gold is needed to produce some item and you are the only guy who controls a bigger chunk or almost all of it, the key resource or input, of course you will become the single producer. Okay, government can also give a single firm the exclusive right to produce. So government can give ECG the only right to supply electricity in Ghana. Government can give the Ghana Post Office, the Ghana Post, the post office people, they have the power alone to kind of run these mail services. Of course, there are couriers and so on, but generally you don't have another firm running like a post office. So government can give for special reasons, some of which we will see later on. Okay, sometimes because you are a smart guy, you are the one who developed the product, you were innovative, you have a patent to the production of the product, and copyright laws confers those rights on the people who developed such products, and so they are able to operate usually for a long time as a single producers. So know the source of monopoly power. It could be control of key resource. It could be granted by the government. And thirdly, it could arise because we just must have one single seller. We call that a natural monopoly. Some things just make sense that there's a single seller, like the electricity. Okay, look at the scenario here. We are arguing that, look, one firm can supply 1,000 homes with electricity. It will cost him 50 cedis, okay, per unit. But if you pick two companies and say, look, there are 1,000 homes, two companies should split it 500 each and supply. You see, you are supplying 500 homes at 80 cedis each. Meanwhile, one company can do all the 1,000 at 50 cedis. Because of the large scale, one company enjoys a lower average total cost. So it's just natural for one company to supply the product like electricity. Look at the mess we'll have in the city if electricity company will mount their poles, the electricity poles, and then another company say, well, me too, I'm supplying electricity to your neighbor, so I'm coming to mount my pole. So the whole community or cities will be filled with electricity poles of different companies. Now that it's only ECG, we just have one located in front of your house, one in front of another person. Think about it. If another company wants to also mount theirs, or another company supplying Ghana water, they want to dig their ground and lay their pipes. It's going to be a mess. So natural monopolies can arise. Okay. All right. Hope you are making some progress right here. Okay. So let's look at some example here. A monopolist revenue structure. Let's look at how it looks like. So this is like a company called Groundies. They are the only sellers of chocolate in the town. And the table below shows the demand structure. So the quantity 0 will be demanded if the price is 450 cedis, 4 cedis 50 pesos. If the price drops to 4 cedis, there is one quantity demanded. If the price falls all the way to 1 cedi 50 pesos, then 6 will be demanded. Okay, let's keep going. So now next slide, we see the table is filled. We already know from our previous lecture that total revenue is price times quantity. So you can fill this column pretty easily. You multiply this and that, 5 times 2 is 10. Average revenue, we also said, is total revenue divided by quantity. So you'll be able to fill here. Of course, you cannot divide total revenue 0 by 0 by 0. It's undefined, so this is not available. Okay. Otherwise, the rest, you can have total revenue divided by quantity, you get 4, and so on. And what's our marginal revenue? Change in total revenue. Okay, this is like a revision, and change in quantity. So what's the change in revenue between these two? From 0 to 4, the change is 4. And then from 0 to 1, the change is 1. So the answer is 4, and you have 4 here. Okay. The 4 has been placed like in the middle of these two, as you can see, just to show that it's computed from these two. I beg your pardon. Okay. Then this 3 is computed from these two. 7 minus 4 is 3, and so on, because 2 minus 1 is 1. So you can also see the marginal revenue column filled, and so on and so forth. So key thing, important thing we should learn, very exciting, similar to competitive firm, of course, total revenue over Q is still price times quantity divided by Q, which boils down to the price, okay? And of course, total revenue over, this cancels that. That's why I wrote price here. This will cancel that. And of course, we know total revenue over quantity is also average revenue. And so this should not confuse you. So we know that, of course, similar to competitive market, price is equal to average revenue, okay? But there is something interesting here. In competitive market, if you watch the previous video, we were clear that price is equal to marginal revenue in a competitive market where price is fixed. Okay, what was the argument? Price is fixed, price is the same. If the price is 10 cedis, you sell to one person, you get 10 cedis. If you sell to two people, you get 20 cedis. What was the additional revenue by selling to two people? Additional revenue here is 10. 20 minus 10 is additional revenue you made by selling to one more person is 10. Look, the 10 is the same as the price. Because price is fixed, you cannot change the price by selling to many more people. It is the same. The additional revenue you make all the time is just the price. In a competitive market, please remember that. The story is different in the monopoly market. Look at our price. Price is greater than marginal revenue in a monopoly market. A monopolist is a price maker. A competitive firm is a price taker. A monopolist can charge the price he wants by restricting output. So look at here. Marginal revenue, okay, is less than the price. This is supposed to match this. 3 and 4, 2, 3.5, 1, 3, 0, 2.5, and so on. So all the time, the price is greater than the marginal revenue. Price greater than marginal revenue. Price greater than marginal revenue. But what is the intuition behind? Remember, we said the monopolist is the single seller of a good with no close substitute. There are some close substitutes. There are substitutes, I beg your pardon. They are just not close. In other words, the buyers still have some alternative. It might not be a perfect alternative to move to if prices were super high. Okay, so it turns out that for the monopolist to sell additional units, price must be reduced on all the units. Okay, think about it. Look, you can sell one unit for 4 cedis. But if you really want to sell 2 cedis, 2 units, I beg your pardon, you can sell 1 unit for 4 cedis. If you want to sell 2 units, each of them must be sold at 3 cedi 50 pesos. Otherwise, they don't buy. Remember, the monopolist faces a downward sloping demand curve. So the law of demand applies. The higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. He still faces the downward sloping demand curve because there are some substitutes that are just not close substitutes. So for the monopolist to sell 4 units, you must sell each of the 4 at 2 cedi 50 pesos. For the monopolist to sell more, price has to be reduced on all the units because it faces a downward sloping demand curve, and the usual law of demand we know applies here. Okay, I am not saying the 4th unit will be sold at 2 cedi 50 pesos. No, you can sell 1 at 4 cedi, 2 at 3 cedi 50 each. If you really want to sell 5 units, you must sell each of them at 2 cedis. Okay, unfortunately, that is what the monopolist faces, and it ties his hands to the benefit of the public. Otherwise, he will bully us. He's a single seller. Look at the society. All those who are single sellers are usually very inconsiderate in their pricing. So for the monopoly, so all the time, the additional revenue he's getting is less than the price because of that idea. The additional revenue he's getting is less than the price. Okay, what's from here to here? Okay, total revenue was 4. When he decided to sell 2 units, he had to drop the price to 3.5 each. Total revenue became 7. Okay. And the price was 3.5, but the additional revenue from 4 to 7 is 3. So the monopoly's price is always greater than the marginal revenue because of that. Always remember that. Always remember that. That's a key thing, actually. Excellent. Hope you are enjoying the lecture so far. So more on the monopoly's marginal revenue, there's something we call output effect and price effect. No. Okay. So we learned in elasticity, right, that which applies here. When you sell more, you make more revenue. Higher output raises revenue. That's common knowledge. If you sell more, you make more revenue. Now, but if you are selling more at a lower price, your revenue is also reducing somehow at a lower price. You are losing revenue compared to if it were a higher price. So we call it the output effect. Sell more, make more revenue. There's a price effect. Lower price reduces your revenue. So which is which? Okay, it depends on the balance. So to sell a larger quantity, the monopolist must reduce the price on all the units he sells. However, you lose revenue when you have to reduce the price. Okay, it's also reinforcing the fact that price becomes greater than marginal revenue for the monopolist. Okay, let's keep going. I hope this concept is clear. Okay, similar to a competitive market, the same idea. If marginal revenue were bigger than marginal cost, what does it mean? Additional revenue from producing one more is bigger than the additional cost. Therefore, keep producing. You will raise your profit if you were to increase production. What if marginal revenue is less than marginal cost? Additional revenue from producing one more is less than the additional cost of producing one more. Okay, here you have to reduce production. Your additional revenue is less than the additional cost. You have to reduce production. So where you, because doing that will increase your profit. So here, increasing production increases profit, reducing production increases profit. So where do you actually produce to maximize profit? Is the same idea. Produce your marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Okay. So the monopolist would locate where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost and produce and go to the demand curve for the price. Okay. Let's take an example here. A monopoly who produces a drug, okay, is the only producer of the drug versus a generic. Usually in the pharmaceutical world, if you're a smart guy, you develop a drug or medicine, you are given a patent to produce for several years, you alone. Later on, other people have the license to produce a generic, okay, type of it. So you can have like Tylenol being for headache, and people would do their own and call it paracetamol or FPAC later on, and so on. Okay, so look at something interesting here. C is for competitive. We are comparing competitive outcome to a monopoly outcome. In perfect competition, we've said price is equal to marginal cost. Assuming, we've said marginal cost looks like this, but assuming is flat this way, okay, just to demonstrate something. And remember, our demand curve is downward sloping. In perfect competition, the price we saw was equal to marginal revenue. Okay, so it's a straight line. Okay, and it's okay. Now here, a monopolist faces a downward sloping demand curve, and its marginal revenue is always less than the price. Okay, so the marginal revenue tends to also be negatively sloped. Okay, now there's something we should note here. How do you draw this demand curve? You need price and quantity. Then you have a demand schedule which obeys the law of demand used to draw this curve. Okay, so essentially, if I know the price, let's say 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I come to the quantity axis and I locate the number 10 and I trace it to the demand curve, it's supposed to correspond to the number 9 because the schedule was used to draw the curve. Okay, so remember that when I go to the demand curve, I'm able to read the price when I know the quantity. When I know the price too, I'm able to trace from the demand curve and know the quantity. Please remember that. Okay. Similarly, when you know the price here, the monopoly's marginal revenue, we've said, is less than the price. Okay, so when you plot the marginal revenue curve, it also looks like this. Because we are reading price from here, this kind of reflects the price. Okay, like I just said, and we said price is greater than marginal revenue. You can see that marginal revenue is less than the price. So you draw it to lie below the demand curve. So I will not draw marginal revenue up here. It will be down here. Okay, and so on. So that's how come the monopolist marginal revenue is downward sloping. Demand curve is already downward sloping. But a competitive firm price is fixed. So you must stay here, and the demand curve for the competitive firm is horizontal. Price is equal to marginal revenue. Okay, so that's how we have the price is equal to marginal revenue here for the company. So we are comparing. This graph has two things going on. One, some of the graphs are for competition, C for competition, C, M for monopoly. Okay. So what do we have here? Now, what's the story? The story here is that, look, if the guy is the only one producing the drug, he's gonna produce where marginal revenue, this is his marginal revenue, is equal to marginal cost. Of course, that's the place that maximizes profit. So you go there first. The monopoly's marginal revenue is equal to, we are assuming marginal cost is horizontal. So you locate the intersection, and that means he's producing here, the intersection, the monopoly, QM for monopoly outcome, output, and he will trace it to the demand curve and know the price. You see, remember, we have a demand schedule. So he knows our willingness to pay, that when quantity is 40, the people are willing to pay 10 cedis, something like that. So you trace the demand curve and charge this price. The monopolist decides to produce QM and trace to our demand curve and charges PM. Competitive firm, right? Price is equal to marginal cost. Of course, it's also equal to the marginal revenue. So if you trace this to the demand curve, a competitive firm is producing QC and charging PC. What's the takeaway point? The monopoly's price is higher than the competitive price. In addition, the competitive quantity is also greater than monopoly quantity. Remember that if you have any scaled axis, if I have A here, immediately B appears to the right of A, then B is greater than A, okay, on the number line. If B appears to the right of A, B is definitely greater. So you must know that QC will be greater than QM. In other words, competitive outcome greater than monopoly outcome. Competitive price also lower than monopoly price. So that is it. A single seller will charge a higher price, exorbitant, than competitive price. Competitive price is always lower. Price is equal to marginal cost. And competitive outcome will also supply more. Society wants you to supply 1,000. You are supplying 500. Really bad, because you want to restrict output and charge a higher price. That's how monopolist outcomes. Very bad for society's welfare. Okay. So, key thing in competition, price is equal to marginal cost. In monopoly market, price is greater than marginal revenue. Of course, he produces where MR is equal to MC. So in effect, price is greater than marginal cost in a monopoly market. Okay. Unfortunately, the monopoly's quantity is too low, as we have just shown, and he charges a higher price. It leads to something we call the dead weight loss. Dead weight loss in the sense that some people really want to buy, assuming this must be 1,000. The society wants 1,000. Monopolist produces only 500. So there are some trade gains in trade that have been forfeited. There are some extra 500 people who really want to buy. They really want to pay PC for it. So the monopolist is producing something like this here. and then a competitive market is doing everything here. Okay, consumer surplus. Some of you will not get that, but the point is that we call something deadweight loss, some gains in trade that never happens. Okay, society wants to consume 1,000 and monopolies produces only 500. Some 500 people who really want to pay PC do not get served, and therefore that gains from trade is denied society. Society is worse off. We call that a dead weight loss. Dead weight loss. Dead monopolist outcome leads to a dead weight loss, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I hope you are enjoying so far. Once we talk about a single seller, then the idea of price discrimination comes in. What is discrimination? Treating different people, okay, differently based on some characteristics. You can discriminate against people based on gender, religion, race, and so on, which you are very much familiar with. Okay, so now, what is price discrimination? A monopolist selling the same good at different prices to different buyers. Okay, so different buyers. A monopolist selling the same good at different prices to different buyers. Even in the university, some people are on scholarship, some people are paying. That's discrimination. It is free for some people are paying, but the same lecture they receive. Same good, different prices to different people. Okay, so the monopolist, because he's a single seller, he indulges in price discrimination so that he can get maximum profit. Okay, he might indulge in price discrimination. He discriminates based on the willingness to pay. He checks out your willingness to pay. If you are really willing to pay high, he will charge you that price. Okay, but people do not reveal their willingness to pay. You can, but remember, if you go to the market to buy a shoe, where we haggle on the market and bargain, okay? The guys will check out, how much you really value the product, your willingness to pay, and they charge you accordingly. So that is the idea here. The monopolists, people don't reveal their willingness to pay, but the monopolists can gauge it and charge a higher price, okay? So in the real world, nobody knows buyers' willingness to pay, and buyers do not reveal that either. Okay, so because of that, the monopolist uses something else. They can use some kind of say, oh, students will pay 10 cedis, workers will pay 20 cedis, and so forth to watch a movie. Okay, so a movie ticket is cheaper. They can give discount to students because they figure their willingness to pay is lower than those who are working. And then the airline people, those who fly, sometimes you can fly from let's say from New York to somewhere in California, and you would spend like 24 hours because you go and do stopover at several places. And a businessman has no time for that. He wants to fly 3 hours, New York to California, and get there and do his business. So the willingness to pay of a businessman is higher than a student who is willing to look for cheap flight and is willing to stay overnight 24 hours. So those who want a straight flight, 3 hours, they charge higher. Those who are willing to stay overnight, they charge lower. It's a form of price discrimination. The same service. They are airlifting you from one city to the other. Okay, so that's kind of the price discrimination and so on. Okay, so essentially that's the idea of the discrimination. Okay, let's keep going. What are public policies towards monopolies? Because we've said the monopolist is a single producer, they restrict output in order to charge a higher price. They do not produce the socially optimal outcome. Society wants more monopolies, produces less, which causes deadweight loss. So there must be some public policies towards monopolists, okay? How can we, live with them peacefully when they are trying to rip us off all the time? So one way is to increase competition so that we'll be able to have more produce and to beat prices down in a competitive manner. We can ban some anti-competitive practices. It is illegal for MTN and Tigo and Vodafone to come together and plan how to charge us higher prices. That is illegal. That would be anti-competitive behavior. It's not allowed. Those are some public policies and laws that are supposed to regulate the activities of companies. And Regulation, government can set the monopoly price. Government can say charge this much, but that is rarely used. Okay, government doesn't come in because of some reasons that may be related to the cost of the monopolist, or because they need an incentive to continue to produce. Some of the public policies can include public ownership, like the postal service. Government can choose to operate the postal service, the post office, and so on. Okay, but public ownerships are less efficient. You know, productivity is always low in the public sector. Or government can do nothing. Okay, just sit down and watch what's going on. Okay? Because almost all the policies have their downsides. If you want to set their price for them, it will discourage them. If you want to regulate them too much, they are also discouraged, and so on. Okay, so that ends the discussion on monopoly. There's a lot more we can do, but I'm considering this as an introductory material, so don't really delve deep into some of the graphs and so on. I hope this gave you a flavor of what the monopoly market is. In sum, a monopoly market is a market with a single seller of a product with no close substitute. The monopolist is a price maker as compared to a competitive firm who is a price taker. A monopolist price is greater than the marginal revenue, or the marginal revenue of a monopolist is always less than the price, because in order to sell more, the monopolist has to reduce price on all the units. Okay. Okay. The next market structure is a monopolistic competition. You may have noticed that the perfect competition is not really common or realistic, where you have many buyers or sellers, prices fixed, selling identical or very similar product, and so on and so forth, where price is equal to the marginal cost. Okay. But the monopoly market exists in reality. Okay. This one, the monopolistic, is very real. You'll find that around you. Okay. In the market you go to. So a monopolistic competition is a market structure with the following characteristics. There are many sellers. There is product differentiation. There is free entry and exit. Okay. Later on, you will see the comparison, okay, between monopolistic and monopoly, and monopolistic and perfect competition. What's an example of a monopolistic competition? We have apartments that people build for rent. They are very similar, but they are not too similar. I beg your pardon. You will see there's product differentiation in monopolistic, but differentiation can be fancied or it can be real. Okay. If you see several chairmen or people build for sale, they insist theirs is different from that of others. So there's product differentiation, but I'm saying the differentiation could be real or actually fancied. Okay. The bottled water, the differentiation is probably not real. Voltic, is it Belaqua, then Awake. These are monopolistic markets. The market for bottled water, they all say their product is different, but the differentiation could be fancied or it could be real. Some of them have their logo on it, which is different from another one. Then they claim that's product differentiation. Okay, some blue jeans, clothing, okay, they all fall in a monopolistic competition. Many sellers, there's product differentiation, free entry, and free exit. Even those who bake bread, yes, A1 bread and all, there are several here, FC, hot oven, they all say their product is different. You can enter the baking industry, free entry, free exit, and there are many sellers. So look at the competition here, the comparison here, I beg your pardon. Take perfect competition and monopolistic. Number of sellers, many in both. Is there free entry and exit? Yes, in both perfect competition and monopolistic. What about the long run economic profit? By the way, there is something I forgot to mention. In a competitive market, we said the long run profits are zero. In monopolistic also is zero. What I forgot to mention that in the monopoly market, a monopolist can sustain higher abnormal or supernormal profits in the long run. Remember, we said a competitive firm cannot sustain higher profits or supernormal profits or positive economic profit in the long run because of free entry and exit. If they were making profit in the short run, potential firms enter and compete the profit away until the profit get to zero or the break-even level. If they were making losses in the short run, marginal firms will exit the market, okay? And then the remaining firms begin to enjoy the higher price coming from the lower output that the market is supplying. But a monopolist almost always makes a supernormal profit or higher economic profit or positive profit in the long run because it is believed he is the only producer, and by the long run, the monopolist would have found antidote or solution to some of the problems it faced in the short run, and therefore will be able to sustain supernormal profit or positive economic profit in the long run. That is the monopoly situation pertaining to profit in the long run. So it is zero in the long run for perfect competition and monopolistic competition. The product they sell are identical or similar in perfect competition, but differentiated in the monopolistic competition. What about market power? A competitive firm has no market power, he's a price taker. A monopolistic competition, a firm in a monopolistic competition has market power. Look, Voltic, Belacqua, they have power over their product. They determine the price, okay, or quantity they supply, okay. What about the demand curve facing a competitive firm is horizontal, perfectly elastic, price is fixed. If you attempt to increase the price, you will sell zero because they'll buy from your neighbors. So it's horizontal, okay. Here is downward sloping, as you've seen, because Belacqua, Voltic, the market for Voltic is their own market, and therefore they face the law of demand, and it's a downward sloping demand curve. Now, the comparison here is now a monopoly and monopolistic, our new market structure we are studying. Let's go through again. Number of sellers, monopoly 1, monopolistic many, free entry and exit. No. In the monopoly, there is no free entry and exit. There are barriers. There are barriers to entry in a monopoly market. But monopolistic allows free entry, free exit. Long run profits are positive in monopoly. I just said that. But zero in monopolistic because of similar argument. Once there are free entry and exit, the long run profits are computed to zero. Do firms have market power in monopoly? Yes. Do they have in monopolistic competition? Yes. Okay. They face their own company's demand curve and they determine the price by choosing the quantity to produce. The downward sloping demand curve is faced by monopoly, same with monopolistic competition. Are there close substitutes? None for monopoly, but many for monopolistic competition. Okay, I hope that is clear. So the outcomes are similar in a monopolistic competition, okay, like we said in monopoly. Under monopolistic, the short-run behavior is very similar to the monopoly, okay. They produce less than the competitive outcome and charge a higher price than the competitive price. In the long run, because of free entry and exit, profits are driven to zero in a monopolistic competition. We've said this, okay, in the perfect competition, so I'm not going to go into that so much. The same thing that we have with the monopoly, we have it here also, that the monopolistic firm produces, okay, under capacity. There is excess capacity. If you're supposed to supply 1,000, okay, and this is the average total cost. A competition firm in perfect competition, beg your pardon, a firm in perfect competition will produce here where the ATC, the per unit cost, is at the minimum, okay? But monopolistic and monopoly, they produce under capacity, okay? So MC here, this is the demand curve, marginal revenue. MC is equal to MR, okay? Usually, you are supposed to produce at the rising portion or the minimum portion of your ATC, where this is what marginal cost here is equal to marginal revenue. Okay, I probably didn't draw it well. You can draw ATC properly. The point is that both the monopolies and monopolistic, they produce less than the cost minimizing output. Okay, they operate on the downward sloping portion of the ATC. If you have clear, or this is what you've seen before, demand curve of monopoly, same as monopolistic, their marginal revenue is like that, marginal revenue, and the demand curve also downward sloping. You can have ATC, average total cost. You can have MC, yes, this is MR, sorry, MR. MC equals to MR here, so that's where they maximize profit. But they are supposed to produce somewhere at the minimum of the average total cost. That's where they are actually producing at an efficient scale, and because of that, they will produce more, okay, and price will come down. But they tend to produce at the downward sloping, where is it, somewhere here? The downward sloping part of the ATC, okay? They are doing that because they just want to produce less, restrict output in order to charge a higher price, okay, rather than where a competitive firm would charge. So the outcome is the same. In this market, there is excess capacity. They could produce more, but they produce less. There is a markup similar to monopoly. Price is greater than marginal cost. Again, price is greater than marginal revenue for the same reason given in monopoly, but they produce where MR is equal to MC. So by extension, price is greater than marginal cost. Okay. If price is greater than this, and this is the same as MC, then price is greater than MC. That's a markup. They charge a little more than the competitive outcome. Okay. So the best welfare for society is a competitive outcome where price is equal to marginal cost, a lot is produced. But monopoly and monopolistic, they produce less than the outcome that will maximize society's welfare. Because price is greater than marginal cost, the quantity is below the socially efficient quantity. Okay. Society values the good than it costs to produce more. So it actually means society really wants the good, but they produce less just because they want to charge a higher price. When you see socially efficient quantity, we are talking about a perfectly competitive outcome where how much we value the good is just the unit cost per unit cost of producing an extra unit. Okay, so society is doing a good job. They are not wasting resources. How much it costs to produce the good is just how much we value it, the price we are willing to produce. So if you see socially efficient quantity, we are talking about a perfectly competitive outcome. It is the largest. Both monopoly and monopolistic produce less in order to charge a higher price. So I don't know if I have a comparison at the end. Otherwise, I have to talk about it here. Okay, this is the outcome. The largest, the biggest is competition. Okay, competition. In terms of quantity they produce, perfect competition produces the highest. Okay, monopolistic will be next. I think later on we compare them, but with the three we've done so far, is a monopoly that is the worst. In terms of outcome, they churn what they churn out. Okay, the outcome they produce for the society to consume. Monopolist is the worst, is the smallest. Monopolistic does better, but also not up to perfect competition. Similarly, the monopoly's price is also bigger than the monopolistic, okay, way bigger than the competition, price for competition. So perfect competition is the best for society. Their price is the lowest. But monopolistic, comparing the three, is also better than the monopolist. Okay. I really don't like monopolists. They are not friends of society. Now, in this market, the monopolistic market structure, because we've talked about product differentiation, we have to talk about advertisement. So it is in this market that you see an advertisement. A monopolist doesn't see the need. A monopolist is a single producer. He doesn't see the need to advertise, right? For what? Perfect competition, no need to advertise. Your products are identical, like potato. If you are selling potato, you advertise, you are advertising for your fellow market woman. The products are the same, no need to advertise. But in monopolistic, there is product differentiation. So there is need for advertisement to drive home the point that your product is different. Okay. So they advertise a lot in monopolistic market. But some economists disagree usually about the social value. Some say it's a bad thing to advertise. Some say it's a good thing. Let's go through some of the critiques. So those who criticize it, they say society is wasting resources. Okay, that it devotes to advertising. If you advertise, you are wasting resources. Firms advertise to manipulate people's tastes. That they say, oh, this is sweet mackerel, blah, 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 buy this one. People think they're just manipulating your taste, switching it to theirs, and that the differentiation is not real. Advertisement impedes competition. Yes, once they succeed in saying their product is certainly different from others, they may be free to charge a higher price. So it will impede competition, okay, compared to the instance where all the commodities or products were seen to be the same. Okay. Immediately, MTN says their services are different from Tigo. They will charge a higher price for their data and so on. Now, those who defend advertisement, they say it's a good thing. That look, it provides information to buyers. I don't know what you think as a class. Advertisement provides information to buyers, and buyers can decide, okay? And buyers can look around for cheaper deals to buy from. So those who defend advertisement, they think it's fine. Okay? They also think it promotes competition. If your competitors push that their products are different and nobody's buying yours, you will sit up and also improve your quality and probably charge a price that is affordable. Some people also say, well, if somebody will pay, who is the biggest star, Shatawale, if somebody will pay Shatawale $100,000 to advertise their product, then the product must be good. If it's not good, they won't waste $100,000 on Shatawale because they will not make that much. So advertisement signals, and using the high profile people is a signal that the product is of high quality. Otherwise, they won't spend $101 million paying Jay-Z or Beyonce to feature in an ad. Okay, so those are some. So that brings us to the end of the discussion on monopoly. We are going to continue with our last market structure, the oligopoly market. All right, an oligopoly market. Okay, it's also an interesting market structure you find around you, like the banks. So oligopoly is a market structure, okay, with concentration. Okay, when we say concentration, we say the percentage of the market's total output supplied by the largest 4 firms. It's called CR4, concentration ratio. You can have CR8. How much of the output of the whole market is supplied by the biggest 4 firms or the biggest 8 firms? Our telecommunication services is supplied the biggest 4 or 3, MTN, Vodafone, Airtel. They supply like 99%. Okay, so maybe CR4 will probably be 99%. 99% of the output of telecommunication services is supplied by the top 4 firms. I know there are some small firms. I understand Kasapa is no longer around, but that's the idea of concentration ratio. A higher concentration ratio means there is less competition. Think about it. If 4 of the largest firms supply 99%, there is less competition. We want like the top 4 should supply like 50%. That means they cannot hijack the market and manipulate prices. So an oligopoly market structure is a market structure with high concentration ratio. What percentage of the entire output is supplied by the 4 largest firms? If only 4 firms have 90%, that's problematic. There's no competition right there. Only 4 people have hijacked the market. An oligopoly market is a market structure with high concentration ratio. We have some example like our banks in Ghana. I'm sure the top 4 control a lot. Ghana Commercial Bank, EcoBank, and Co. ADB, NIB. Now, video game consoles, Nintendo, and a few people. Okay, the top 4 control 100%. The tennis ball, credit card, we just have Visa, probably MasterCard, and Discover. So just 3 and so, and a few others. The Tiger Head battery, a few Duracell, just a few top 4 controlling 40%. Okay, Seagate, and a few others. Okay, so that's the idea of an oligopoly market. Like our telecommunication here is definitely oligopoly market. Market structure with only few sellers. Okay, so more formally, an oligopoly market is a market structure with only a few sellers, and they offer similar or identical. So important here, similar or identical. So let's summarize for now. If I am asleep, you wake me up and say, sir, I have seen a market with only one producer. I will say, straightforward, that is a monopoly market. If you say, sir, I've seen a market with only few sellers, then I know also straightforward is an oligopoly market. If you say, sir, I've seen a market with many sellers, then I ask you, are they selling differentiated products? Then I will say, well, then that is monopolistic. Are they selling identical or similar products? If you say yes, then that's perfect competition. So that's how you identify the 4. A single seller, fewer sellers or few sellers, that's oligopoly. Many sellers, you must ask additional question. Are they selling differentiated products? If yes, that's monopolistic competition. Are they selling identical? That is perfect competition. You see the banks and MTN and Co, because they are few and selling similar or identical, they tend to indulge in strategic behavior. If MTN has this promotion, Vodafone wants to continue with that promotion and also wants to launch some, and so on. So before we continue, please follow me closely. I want to talk about the strategic behavior with this scenario. So please pay attention and follow. Okay. I want to talk about the strategic behavior in oligopoly. Okay. An oligopoly with only 2 firms is called a duopoly. So consider a case where there's only MTN and Tigo. Only MTN and Tigo that are selling, identical products in this small town of 140 people. What are they selling? A mobile phone with unlimited airtime. So when you buy one of the goods, it means you bought a mobile phone with unlimited service. That's just to simplify. So remember, 140 residents, and this is the demand schedule for the village or the town. If price is zero, all the 140 people wants to own the mobile phone. If price is 5, only 130 want to. Okay. If price is 40, only 60 people want to buy. If price is 45, so this is the law of demand. The higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. I beg your pardon. We assume that fixed costs are 0. That's just for simplicity. There are only 2 firms, MTN and Tigo. facing a downward sloping demand curve. The additional cost is 0, is 10. Additional cost of producing one more is 10. Okay, because fixed cost is 0, you can think of this as the additional cost of producing one more. It's also like the per unit cost in this particular case. We want to show something, so please pay attention. We just want to talk about the strategic behavior. Now we augment our demand schedule with some information. Revenue here, we just put in revenue, price times quantity, price times quantity, and so on. There is a cost of production. We just put this here, and the profit, total revenue minus total cost. From what we've learned so far, a competitive firm produces where price is equal to marginal cost. So look for where price is equal to marginal cost, and we've said the marginal cost is 10. Assume it's 10. So here, the green one, a competitive firm will produce here where price is equal to 10. Okay, we've said on the previous slide that we are assuming marginal cost is 10. So just look for where price is equal to 10. For sure, that is the competitive outcome. At price of 10, competitive market supplies 120, okay, and makes a profit of 0. Okay, I hope that is clear. Where would the monopoly outcome be? He will look for the highest profit, 1,800. And because of that, he will charge 40 and produce 60. Really bad. Competitive firm is charging 10 cedis, monopoly 40. Unbelievable. Okay, I beg your pardon, they should be cedis, okay, or they should be consistent. Cedis. Look, this is what we've said. Competition charges 10, monopoly 40, and reach the highest profit, 1,800. Competition 0 profit. Another striking difference. Competition supply 120, monopoly just half of that. It restricts output. That's a deadweight loss in order to charge a higher price. Okay, what do we want to establish here? We want to talk about the idea that firms in oligopoly markets indulge in strategic behavior to outsmart the others. Even the airlines in Ghana, Amtrak, I don't know if they are still there, Starboard, African World Airlines, okay, they may collude and cheat Ghanaians or run competitively, and so on. Okay. So in our duopoly example, we can have something we call collusion. Collusion and an agreement is an agreement among firms in a market. An agreement among firms in a market about quantities to produce or prices to charge. Okay, please pay attention here. We are saying that MTN and Tigo can choose to collude, come together, and act like a monopolist. They say, hey, look, MTN and Tigo, the managers come together. Look, why don't we come together and supply only 60 mobile phones? If there is only 60 on the market, the demand schedule shows that we can charge 40 cedis per phone, and we'll be able to make 1,008 in profit and share it 900 each. So MTN and Tigo can decide to come together and act like a monopolist, charge 40, supply only 60, and share the profit 900. If they do that, we've said they've colluded, okay, and they have formed a cartel, okay. So this is it. If they come together, they say, well, if we're able to supply only 60, where is it? It's at the bottom. If we are able to supply only 60, that means you supply 30, and I also supply 30. The market outcome is altogether 60. We can charge a price of 40 and get 1,800 to share 900. Okay. But we are saying that, please pay attention, this is the important part, the interesting part. Even when they collude and form a cartel, there is an incentive for one of them, MTN or Tigo, to cheat. Cheating is attractive because of the following reason. Please pay attention. Remember, if they were to collude, each of them produces 30. The market outcome is 60. they charge 40. But we are saying that one of them may cheat. After they've agreed to produce 30, one of them may increase his output to 40. He has cheated because he can make more money by cheating to produce 40. So by the time MTN realized Tigo has cheated and produced 40, then MTN said, hey, I've been cheated. As for me, I produced 30. So the whole market now has 70. Because it is 70, we can no more charge 40 cedis. We are forced to charge 35 each. So MTN has lost. That is the crust of this slide. Now, the one who look, this is quantity you produced times price minus per unit cost. This is the calculation of profit. This is per unit profit. Price minus per unit cost times this per unit profit. You multiply by the quantity, you get the profit of MTN. Now, we knew that if they were to obey the rule, nobody cheated, they'll make 900 cedis each. Look, now that Tigo has cheated, the price has been brought to 35. Remember, we said our average total cost will be the same as marginal cost, 10. Tigo cheated, they produced 40. Multiply and see. The difference here is 25, right? 25 times 40. That's 1,000. He has cheated, he made 1,000. If he hadn't cheated, they would have all made 900 each. That's why cheating is so attractive. And MTN could have cheated, and then Tigo could have also cheated. They all have the demand schedule on their table. So when they agree to produce 30 and charge a price of 40 and make 900 each, it's attractive for each one of them to cheat. So you cheat, produce 40, make 1,000. The one who didn't cheat, what will he make? Because he didn't cheat, he obeyed and produced 30. Price is now 35 because somebody cheated. And per unit cost is 10. So what is 30 times 25? 25. That's 750. You were promised that let's collude, form a cartel, you make 900. You are now making 750. So it's a problem. They all worry that their partners will cheat. It is the reason why cartels don't hold, because they cheat. They don't trust each other. And even in the drugs. So this mathematics is showing what I've done. You can take your time and read. Now, even in the drugs, those cocaine people, cartels, they are fighting because of cheating. They agree and somebody outsmart the other and so on. So both firms will be better off if they both stuck to the cartel agreement. Yes. If they both respected their deal, they were going to produce 30 each, charge 40 cedis per phone, mobile phone, and make 900 cedis each. So that's a better outcome if they colluded. Okay. But because of selfish self-interest, one of them is tempted to cheat. Because of that, if I am MTN, I know Tigo may cheat. I also cheat. That's what happens, and there is fight and they don't agree. Think, for example, if they were to all cheat, what happens? Then Tigo will produce 40 instead of 30. MTN 40 instead of 30. The market has been flooded with 80. Instead of the intended 60, the market is now 80. Let's go back. Look at 80. 80, they will charge a low price. Where is 80? If the market has 80, they have to charge 30 cedis. That's so bad. So 30 cedis. Let's calculate the profit. Both of them have cheated now. Because you suspect a partner will cheat, you also cheat. They end up flooding the market with 80, and the price is now 30. Let's look at their profit. So they produce 40, price has now dropped to 30. Marginal cost or average cost is 10. So 40 times 20 is what? 800. This is the point. This is where they will end up. If they colluded, they made 900 each. They both now end up making 800 each. So because of self-interest, selfishness. So both firms will be better off if both stuck to the cartel agreement. but each firm has incentive to renege on the agreement. Lesson: it is difficult for oligopoly firms to form cartels and honor the agreement. That helps us as society, by the way. They are not able to cheat us. So this is our last slide for this lecture, is comparing them. This is always asked in an exam. So remember, an oligopoly quantity is greater than the monopoly quantity, but smaller than the competitive outcome. I've said this before. What about the price? Oligopoly price is greater than perfect competition, but he also tries. He is less than the monopolist. Monopolist has the worst outcome. So we don't have a demand curve for oligopoly because there are different things that happen. We just talk about a duopoly. Okay, there are other variants we call the Bertrand, where the firms compete based on price, or the connote duopoly. So in Bertrand, they compete on prices. When I charge 10 cedi, my fellow competitor will charge 9 cedi. Then I also come back to the 9 cedi and he reduced to 8 cedi, and so on. Okay, so that's called a Bertrand competition. We don't cover it here. Those of you who do graduate school or whatever, PhD economics, you enjoy these things. Okay, so that's the end of the lecture. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Okay, the lecture has ended. You have my email. The slides have been emailed to you. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.